So if you're a creative in any capacity, I'm sure you're familiar with this experience. You make something, you're super proud of it, and you think to yourself, maybe I'm getting good at this. Maybe I actually have some skills, maybe I'm talented. And then you start working on the next thing and it's just atrocious. It looks like the worst thing that you've ever done. And then you end up getting confused and frustrated because you look at the last thing that you did and it was really good. And now the thing that you're working on is just terrible. So why is it that you can make something that's great, but then also something that's terrible? Now, depending on you and your exact scenario, you might be feeling imposter syndrome, you might just be feeling frustrated, or you might just be confused because you made something that's really good and now you're making something that isn't so good. And for me, I kept trying to go back and try to figure out, why is it that I feel this way? And why is there this discrepancy between my work? And the more that I thought about it, I ended up coming up with a theory or perspective that kind of helped me be a little bit easier on myself. And so I wanted to share my thoughts because I thought it might be helpful to some of you who might be in the same shoes that I was, where you're frustrated or confused, and maybe you just feel like giving up because you're like, I'm never going to be able to do something at the level that I did that one time. Maybe it really was just a fluke and that was it. So if that's you right now or has been you in the past, hopefully this video will give you a different perspective that will maybe allow you to be a little bit more easier on yourself. Anytime that we're talking about a skill or a craft or something knowledge-based, I feel like we usually think about it in levels. Almost like a video game where if you gain enough experience or knowledge, or if you do enough work, you'll get to level 1, then you'll go to level 2, and then you'll go to level 3. And I think that's kind of where we're getting off on the wrong foot, because that's where the frustration and the confusion comes from, because we're essentially saying, once we hit this level, we are no longer going down. We have to only go up or be at this level. But I don't think creativity necessarily works exactly like that. I don't think you can just reach a certain level and then you are just at that level and you can no longer go below, you can only go above. And so for a lot of people, we think, oh, we're at level 2, whatever it is, we're at level 3, 4, 5 at this one craft or this one thing that we're doing. And so whenever we see work that doesn't feel like that level, we're getting confused and frustrated because it's like, I've reached here, I've gotten here, I've done enough, I've been doing this for a while, I have all this knowledge, why is it that I'm not doing this level of work? And the more that I thought about that experience and how it was that I felt anytime that happened, I started to kind of change my perspective to think that maybe it's not necessarily a one level, something very linear, it's maybe more of a range. So while yes, maybe you are capable of doing this level 5 work, but maybe your worst work is actually a level 2. So if we were to kind of make this a bar graph, instead of it just being you get to this level right here and that is it, you also have to raise up your bottom level. And once I started to look at my creativity through that lens of it being a range rather than just a set number, I started to go a little bit easier on myself, because what I realized was I'm capable of making something at this level, but that doesn't mean that I'm always going to do that, because my skill level range is actually here. So while I'm capable of making something at this level, sometimes I might be here depending on what it is that I'm making or just the day. And so whenever I'm thinking about, doing work and doing lots of work and gaining experience, it's not just about raising my top line, it's also about raising my bottom line. And so hopefully my worst work is getting better and it's leading me closer to my best work. But as I'm raising my worst work, hopefully my best work is also going up. So it's kind of like they're always chasing each other. You make one new thing and it's all the way up here and you're super proud of it, but you're still making stuff that's down here. But as you start to kind of, decrease that gap, you'll make something else that puts you up here. So instead of feeling like I have to always perform at this level, maybe it's okay that I'm performing down here because that's just my creativity range. And the more that I work, I'm going to get even better and better. And then the next thing you know it, I'll be capable of making it all the way up here. And that cycle just continues. You just keep making your worst work better until you make the next best thing in your portfolio. And then that cycle just repeats. And for me, that perspective shift was great because it stopped making me feel like I have to always perform at my best. Like I always have to be making the next best thing in my portfolio. And if I do anything less than that, I'm failing. And so the truth is, as the cycle continues, it's not just about always getting to the point where I'm making my best work. It's about making sure that my worst work is continuing to get better. Everyone's going to be a little bit different and everyone's range is going to be different. So it really just depends on you and where you're at currently. But as long as you're continuing to kind of increase both your worst work and your best work, you're going to be making progress. So I'm hoping that this perspective will help you be a little bit easier on yourself and understand that you don't always have to perform at your best, because you're not always going to perform at your best. Just because you made something incredible yesterday doesn't mean that you have to do that today, or that you won't be able to do something even better tomorrow. Your skills and your creativity have a range. And so sometimes what you're working on is not necessarily making the best thing in your portfolio, but just making sure that it's not the worst thing in your portfolio. So stop having this expectation that you always have to perform at your highest level and that you can't do anything worse than your best. Of course, always try to do your best, but if you do fail, just keep in mind that this might be an opportunity just to make sure that your worst work is getting better instead of making the next best thing. Both are important, but if the only benchmark that we have is our best work, then sometimes we're going to fall short. And if we're not careful, then we'll always just be living in the shadow of our best work, and it'll haunt us. And that's where that frustration and that confusion comes from. And really, that's just not going to help you perform at your best, because now you're clouded with all this doubt and confusion and anger and frustration. But really, if you want to make your best work, you need to have a better and clearer mind. So keep this in your mind moving forward, and remember to be easy on yourself. Don't beat yourself up and don't give up. Just keep going, and eventually you'll figure it out. But if you found this video helpful at all, I'd appreciate it if you would check out the rest of my channel and then consider subscribing. I hope to see you in the next video.